All right. Back after an extended leave. It's been a while. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it. So here's my lesson. My lesson is not going to require me to play anything. It's really a talk on one issue that's super important that I think does not get noticed as much. And I think you can go on YouTube and all these sites and learn all kinds of stuff. And most of it is nonsense. How's that to start thing out? Most of what you learned is nonsense. Okay, now that's a little bit of a exaggeration, but let me. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of teachers offended by this, and that's okay. But it's my show, so I'm gonna tell you what I think. Anyway, and those of you who are my students may have heard this story before, and those who haven't may have heard a part of it. But I'm gonna tell it to you this way: we are, as drummers, I like to call us, we are the mole people. Okay, mole, M-O-L-E. I think that's how you spell it. We are the mole people, and let me explain what the mole people are. So, again, this doesn't require drumming. Although I could play. Okay, so we are the mole people. Okay, what do I mean by that? So I have a friend of mine who's also a drummer, and before he was into drumming as heavily as he is now, he was in medical school, and I don't even think he remembers this story. I think I told him the story once, and I don't even think he remembers it. But so I don't know at what point in medical school or all that, but that's irrelevant. At some point, a patient came in. And he was with at that time the doctor. He was the student or the internist. I don't know which, and the person had to have a mole removed. And so the doctor said, "All right, we're gonna remove the mole." And the guy had the mole and was on the back of his head or his neck or something. And my friend was with the doctor, and the doctor started removing the mole or whatever. And then he told my friend to continue the mole removal. He had to go and, I don't know, maybe the nurse came in. I don't know. He had to go and do something, continue the mole removal. So my friend obviously was a little nervous. This is not something he had done before. He's trying to remove this mole, talking to the patient and making sure he doesn't think this is the first time he's ever removed a mole in his life. So he's trying to keep him calm, but at the same time he's nervous because he's never done it before. And so he's removing this mole, and he's a little unsure of himself. But the doctor at some point comes back in, and he removes the mole, and everything's fine. So now if we fast forward 30-something years, this same student now is a highly acclaimed urologist, right? Does all kind of robotic surgery and extremely advanced, sophisticated techniques. So quite a difference from the mole days when he was cutting the mole off. Okay, that's that story. Now I'm going to tell you another story. So when I was in music school, not medical school, music school, MS still, music school, medical school. When I was in music school, and it's funny because I still keep in contact with some of my buddies from there, and occasionally we'll talk about books that we went through or techniques that we worked on and things that we spent hours and hours of time on. So just like when people go to college and they're studying, people think, oh, you went to music school. Well, how much could you have really worked? You're just playing. Okay. Well, some of that may be true. But the point is, so while I'm in music school, we're practicing, right? Because that's what we've got to work on. That's our homework, right? We're practicing. So we're practicing hours and hours a day, unless we get hungry. Then my friend Dave knocks on my practice room door and invites me to go to Carl's Jr. for a cheeseburger. Hang on a minute. Which probably happened more than it should have. But anyway, outside of those times, outside of those times, you're practicing all day, right? So you go to your classes, you're practicing all day, and you're practicing on all kinds of things. So I'm 22 or however old I was, and I'm practicing on 21, 20, I don't know. I'm practicing all of this stuff throughout the time at my school. So what are we practicing? We're practicing everything that you can think of. Reading, sight reading, different styles, odd times, linear things, just anything you could think of is just thrown at you. Okay, we're going to work on it this way. We're going to work on it this way. This variation, this variation. Hours spent on all of this stuff. Metric modulation, polyrhythms, 7/3 or 3/4 or 19/16 or odd time signatures, all kinds of stuff thrown at you. Work on it, practice it, get into it, all this kind of stuff. Okay, so you do it. You spend hours. I remember literally spending days sometimes, 8, 9 hours practicing. You're just there on a Saturday or whatever. You go in at 9 o'clock and you come out at 5, except for the break for lunch, which was necessary. And you're working on things. Remind me to tell you the 7-hour story of my shuffle practice one day. Okay, some of your students already know that one. But anyway, so hours and hours practicing. Okay. Fast forward 30 years, right? Just like, and by the way, we're very similar ages. We graduated from the same high school. So he goes to medical school, I go to music school. Fast forward 30 years. Now, while he's doing all the sophisticated robotic stuff, as I look back on my 30 years and as I talk to people, I realize, now, I'm going to preface this by saying, I'm not saying it didn't necessarily make me the player I am today, okay? I wouldn't, and that's whatever it is, okay? There's lots of people better than me. I'm sure I'm better than other people. That's how it is with everything. But I'm just saying that all of that stuff does play a part. However, we are the mole people. And I mean, most of the time, 30 years of playing, and I've been in a fusion band for 10 years, so style-wise, some pretty intricate music. But still, outside of that, for the most part, you're playing, for the most part, you're playing basic drumming in all of your playing. You are the mole people. You're playing the basic 2 and 4, and I'm not saying you don't have to make that feel good, and that's an art form all itself. But all of the stuff that we learn as a music school student, for the most part, we don't use that for 30 years. I don't think I've ever played any metric modulation in a band. I've never played in 1916 in a band. I don't think I've played 7/8 much in a band. I mean, I had a couple of songs, but over the bar line fills, chart reading, I don't think I've ever, I love all that stuff, and I remember really working hard on the big band charts and all that stuff, and I love big band. But I've never played with a big band, sadly, since I've been out of school. Real book stuff, looking at the real book, trying to sight read it, trying to play. I don't think, maybe a couple times I played some real book stuff with some guys sight reading as a, something like fun to do. Let's pull out the real book and try to play. So these things we work on and we work on and we work on. But the point is, and I've said this to many students at the studio, I have Dave Weckel and Vinny and all these people on the wall. And what I tell them is, you've got to be able to play the basics as good as these guys. And then they usually laugh and think I'm just joking. But I'm actually not joking. You've got to be able to play the basics as good as anybody. Because the basics are doable for everybody. And you can play it as well as anybody. The smartest mind in the world, and believe me, math is not my thing. But I know that 2 + 2 is 4. But you get all your crazy equations and all kind of the crazy math stuff. 2 + 2 is still 4. I know that. 2 and 4 on the drums is where you've got to be. Even with the smartest minds in the world, they still got to know 2 + 2 is 4. You've got to know your backbeat on 2 and 4, eighth notes, 1 and 3, and then you make it feel good. And I don't diminish all those players who that's what they do. That's the point. The point is we're the mole people, and we do the basics 90% of the time. So here's the drill. Now this might, again, I'm not saying it's worthless. I'm not saying that. But if you aspire to be a good, solid, just rock drummer and you want to play really good drums, you should work on that. I don't know that it's important to go through 100 different books, learn your sight reading, work on odd times and all of that stuff, and Latin patterns, and work on, oh, I got an idea, let's play a 3-2 clave with my left foot, and let's play a cascara pattern with my right hand, and we'll do a samba bass with my right foot, and then my left hand will play eighth note triplets. Great, work on that for like, I don't know, a week, and then come back. Great independence. When am I going to use that? That's a whole nother story, because I actually proposed that to a teacher once, and he played it. So that's a whole nother thing. But it's not necessary. Depends what your goals are. Back then, my goal was to be the best drummer I could possibly be. That was it. And I loved all kinds of music, so I wanted to play Latin, and I wanted to play jazz, and I wanted to play big band. And actually, I liked that stuff more. I was into fusion, and I was into all that stuff. A lot of people aren't into that. So it's not necessary to learn all of that. If you're into playing groove-oriented, solid 2 and 4, then you should be working on that 5 hours a day and not spending as much time working on all the stuff that the YouTube people say is you got to learn how to play in this time signature, and you need to learn this, and you're only good if you could play, a Mahavishnu song, or if you can't play, I don't know, YYZ or something, all of that stuff is really nonsense. Be the mole person, but be really good at it. So work on laying down your groove, solid pocket, tasty fills, but we don't really have to be Vinnie Colaiuta. There's not many of those guys. And I think as a student in general, I've really taught probably over the course of my life, I don't know, I guess probably thousands of students. I would think between the school and private lessons, and I would think so. Something like that. But anyway, one guy has turned out to go to music school and be a teacher. I believe out of all those students, most people just want to have fun and play. Spend your time playing. Spend your time listening to music, playing along with music, improvising on the drums, learning those basic things, and those are the things I try to help you learn, and get really solid with that. If you want to venture off into certain areas, I think that's cool. I love it all. But especially adults, when you have a limited amount of time, I don't think you need to waste your time on all these exercises that you're never going to really play. So when you could sit down and you're happy and you could play really good, everybody could learn. Get super solid, play it over and over and over again till you could play it as good as anybody else at a normal tempo. The other thing, practice different tempos. Different tempos. How fast can you play it? How fast are most songs? 120, 130? How fast do you have to play your paradiddles? I get all of that. You're working on things. You're working on speed, triple Rademachews, all of this stuff, Sango patterns, all super fast. I could play it at 200. And then you're in a band playing Bob Seger music. I'm just saying, work on the Bob Seger stuff over and over and over, or work on the whoever you're into. Now, if you're into strange music, then you have to go that direction. If you're into Animals as Leaders, then God bless you. You got a lot of practice to do. But if you're into John Cougar, and you got to get really good playing the basics. You got to get real good at being the mole person. And for most of us, we are the mole people. So if I offended anybody, I apologize. But I think we probably need to work more on the basics and not as much on the craziness. But I still love reading. I love chart playing. I love jazz. If you're into jazz, you have to learn. But if you're not into it, then you just got to work on those basic things. If you're into Slipknot and whatever, then you got to learn to play things fast. You don't have, and all that type of thing. Double bass. If you're into double bass, you got to work on your double bass. But, if someone says you really got to work on that, I got a great independence exercise. Cascara, 3/2 clave, samba bass, eighth note triplets. Tell them I think I'm going to go work on the new Tom Petty song. Not that there is a new Tom Petty song, because that would be pretty weird if Tom Petty had a new song. But I'm going to go work on an old Tom Petty song, and I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to leave all the other stuff for someone else to do. I think that would be the wise choice. Practice, practice, practice. Just practice the right stuff. And I'm going to go talk to my friends about the Wilcoxon book. And what was that other book that we worked on a lot? I don't remember. There's a lot of books that we laugh at now. And I believe I've asked the question, have you ever used anything from that? And I think the answer is always the same. Mole people is the way to be. See you next time.